So Crimson Desert, that was just delayed to Q1 of 2026, just dropped 13 minutes of gameplay over on, shocker, IGN. We're gonna see how terribly they screwed up the capture. Max available is 4K 60. Okay, but let's see what they did here.
We have to hurry to support the marquee.
I think so. I don't see an IGN watermarked like logo on here at all. I think that this is just literally the raw capture straight from the developers at Pearl Abyss, which is the way you should do it. Give IGN the raw file and you just say, upload this, don't do anything to it. Because they literally are incompetent when it comes to encoding video. But this actually looks decent. It is compressed pretty heavily. And I will say, when I tried the game at Summer Games Fest, it did have a lot of like artifacting from temporal upscalers, which you can see here. Like if we enhance, even with this 4K capture, you can see some of the like, I don't even know what to call it. It's this like checkerboarded pattern on the grass as it's trying to upscale it. So it just kind of does this like zigzag looking thing, this like hex pattern. It's something you'll see in a lot of games that use upscalers pretty aggressively, and it's something you'll see in a lot of Crimson Desert footage as well. Yeah, I believe this is the mission that we did at Summer Games Fest.
I've got the broad strokes.
It's all bad news, I'm afraid. The odds weren't in our favor to begin with, and now there's a mutiny within. There's a high chance the enemy will take the castle.
No.
If Marquis Lanford falls, then the entirety of Hernan will be in danger.
Marshal, preparations are complete.
Understood.
Heard one of my men is on the front lines.
Indeed. My scouts say he's fighting in the keep.
I'd expect nothing less.
Marshal, we've lost another outpost to the Black Bears.
I see. Greymane, your comrade is likely holding out in the keep with the Marquis.
I've got to get to him.
Going in alone, given the present situation, would be suicide. The enemy has seized our outposts and constructed watchtowers. Approaching won't be easy. If you must go now, you'll need to use the cannons to clear your path.
Cap.
Marshal, we've been waiting for you.
Yeah, here's another example of where you can see the really, really heavy use of upscalers. Like it just starts to look really, oh my God, wrong button. Really, really grainy. And you just lose all clarity. And this is a much better encoded video because you can tell it's still preserving all of this detail. But, you know, if you're using heavy upscalers, there's just only so much you can do at the end of the day. And it's been my primary concern with Crimson Desert is how is it going to run? Like when I played it at Summer Games Fest, and we'll talk about this as it goes on, the controls are a lot. Like the controls are not really that intuitive, and that's going to get refined as they get closer to launch and they're responding to feedback. They already told us they made a bunch of changes to how this stuff worked, and you know, they got feedback, hey, this camera lock on should work this way, and so they made changes. So they're improving it still, and they're taking it to a lot of conventions for people to play, but the controls are not super easy. They're pretty tough to learn. But this is also the thing to remember, is that this sequence you're seeing is from much later in the game when you should already have a good amount of muscle memory. So just because the muscle memory is not there, it's going to feel less intuitive and more difficult to figure out. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to feel bad when you've played the game from start to finish and they introduce one new mechanic at a time and one new ability at a time to the point where you just slowly learn how to do it. The example I gave the other day was with like Ghost of Tsushima, the different stances. If you load straight into the Iki Island DLC and you try to pick up the controller and swap stances with enemies that are constantly changing their weapons and their own stances, it's going to be really, really difficult and probably feel pretty clunky, but it's literally just because you haven't got the muscle memory yet. Yeah, this is what we did at Summer Games Fest as well. They have this physics system so you can launch cannons as part of these sieges. Oh, they cut that really short. And then this, so this was subtle. I wonder if it's gonna come up again. Yeah, yeah. So this is an earlier mission where you have to pick up this flag and put it into the post. And this is going to be important later because they're teaching you a skill that's going to be used in a boss fight. But you don't even realize you're being trained for the boss fight in that moment, which is just kind of cool. But you fly around, and this is where you can see like the sheer volume of what they're trying to do. They have a ton of enemies on screen and being simulated at any given time. Just look at the mini map in the bottom left. I mean, it's kind of crazy how much stuff they've got going. But particle effects out the wazoo. Lots of smoke effects. Some pretty wild movement and blood effects. Transition to nighttime, even more fights going on. And this is where I think the upscaler issue and the particle effects, I don't even know what you call it. I think I've called it before particle effect fetishism. Because, you know, some of these studios, they love their particle effects. You know, all the sparkles, all of the glitter, all of it. Just yes. How much should we add? Yes. This is where it can become a problem, though, is that upscalers struggle with like small, smooth gradations of color mixed with particle effects, moving quickly with unpredictable camera movements. In other words, upscalers really struggle with nighttime sequences and fights where the camera's moving a lot unpredictably because you're moving around fighting people, and there's lots of particle effects. So when I played it at Summer Games Fest, this is where like detail started to get lost. And it looks like in this capture, it's retained a lot more, which is encouraging because it means they've continued to make optimization improvements, which again is exactly what you'd hope to see. I pressed the wrong button again. It's exactly what you'd hope to see. Yeah, they have these different enhancements for the bow and for your weapons and stuff so that you can apply them kind of on the fly depending on who you're fighting. But even there, if we see the camera zooms out, look at the mini map on the bottom. Look how many enemies are just in this small area. Like they're simulating all of this all at the same time. They're all running around all the way over here on the map. There's all sorts of other enemies fighting out that you can see in the distance and fly to very quickly. So there's a lot going on. And bear in mind, this is all in their own proprietary engine too. This ain't no Unreal Engine stuff. Boss fight. Okay. There's some dude begging for money over there during the boss fight. So he takes out the boss. We go in there. We talk to the guy. He's not doing too great. We help him out. Then we're going to blow up that whole thing. It blows up. Super cool. Love it.
Oh, we got those fuckers good. Thanks to you.
Happy to help.
Great, man. We've been looking for you.
And then we are fighting within the castle itself. So this is something that apparently they'll do repeatedly throughout the game. They have these big siege fights where you are literally besieging a city. And it's really cool. Huge set pieces. Then also massive fights with hundreds and hundreds of enemies on screen that you're chopping through. And it's pretty intense. It's pretty intense. You know, they said that the normal gameplay is not like this. This is like a big inflection point within the story and within certain moments of the game. Typically, you're going to be like exploring, or you might go and do a side quest where it ends with a boss fight and that's it. But they're like, these massive scale battles are supposed to be special, and it's not like this is the whole game, to be clear.
You're alive!
I'll take care of the traitor.
All right. I'll protect my men beyond the wall.
And we're right back in it. And then this is the boss fight. This is the boss fight.
want to kill, Greymane. Still aiding that lout, Stefan Lanford. Then this is your end!
And we're right into it. And this boss fight is tied to a gimmick, like I mentioned earlier, with the picking up of the post and the flag to set it down. And it works well if you know the button controls. More on that in a second. Is it going to read it? Is it going to read it? Okay, I'll go back to your super chat in just a second because I want to refer to it. So when I did this demo and I got to this boss fight, the lady who was helping me play it was very, very nice. Very, very good. But she mixed up like a couple of the buttons. I forget if it was like R2 or L2 or if it was R1 or R2. It was something like that. But basically she was like, oh yeah, so you pick up the post, the pillar, and then you're going to swing it at the boss and you're going to attack him by pressing R1 or whatever it was. So I kept picking up the pillar, tapping R1, and then it wouldn't attack him and he'd get up and be fine. And I was like, oh, is it bugged? Is something happening? Like, it's fine if it's a bug. We're like months and months out from release. I just like, what's going on? And we tried multiple waves of the boss. We went through like 3 or 4 cycles of the boss fight before finally I just was like, I wonder if and I just tried pressing a different button and then it worked and it actually dealt the damage. Because you'll see he'll get kind of incapacitated here in a second. And then he's going to pick up a pillar and hit him with it. Okay. Almost. Then he drops. And you have to pick up the pillar just like you picked up the flag. And then you have to press R1. I think she was saying press R2 or something, or L1. And so I was trying to do it with the wrong button. But if you press the right button, it does this. Skadoosh, and deals a ton of damage, which is just kind of fun. It's like bringing back full circle the picking up the pole from earlier, which is always cool to see subtle teaching of mechanics when players don't even realize they're being taught something. But speaking of the upscaler stuff, because we had a super chat from on AWNNN. Thank you for the very generous 10 Canadian super chat. I feel like the upscaler situation is getting out of control. Wu-Chang ran at 540p at the lowest, and the guys at DF pushing for DLSS and ray tracing makes it worse. The growing pain sounds like cope. One of the excuses for a lot of these, like the reliance on upscalers, is that it's going to allow us to get to normalized ray tracing, which does greatly improve the quality of the lighting in games and the dynamics you can have within scenes. It makes, in theory, development even faster because you don't have to carefully light scenes and then bake it all in. Like, I get why they like the idea of ray tracing. And the idea is that upscalers allow us to use ray tracing and stuff, even though right now it's not anywhere close to as efficient or practical as like rasterized rendering. And so the performance issues are a growing pain, but DLSS helps to alleviate some of that. And so is FSR and all these other techniques. And that's fine. Like, growing pains are fine so long as eventually they stop. You know, like if you eventually grow to the point where now you don't have any pains and you're just grown, then it's okay. The problem is now it feels like a lot of companies are using upscalers to hit performance targets. They're not hitting the performance targets and then using upscalers to even further enhance the fidelity and what's possible. And you can see here, like, there's all sorts of kind of fine detail that's flickering. Come on. When I go frame to frame, and it's all of this like ghosting that you see all around the sharp bits of metal that's like trailing it. You see that? It makes it look almost like he's glowing and glittering when he's not. It's just shiny armor. So it just doesn't really look quite right, you know? And it looks ever so slightly off. It still looks good, don't get me wrong. Like, this is still a visually impressive game, but it doesn't look quite as good as I think it could if you were running just at native, you know? And so I think the frustration with upscalers and stuff is certainly justified. And a great example of a company that did this right was with Warhorse with KCD2. They put out their spec sheet and they're like, oh, no. We optimized for you playing it natively without upscalers. Upscalers just give you extra performance, which is like, yes, please. Thank you. Because otherwise, like you said, you get into situations where like Wu Chang runs at 540p in the year of our Lord and Savior Todd Howard 2025. Like, if you went back 10 years and you told somebody, hey, next generation's going to be crazy, dude. We're going to get these games. They're massive. They run at 540p, but like we can stretch them and upscale them so they look better. You'll be like, what? Like, what are we doing? I understand some of the stuff with like ray reconstruction is genuinely unbelievable. Like, it's crazy. If you've not tried ray reconstruction and like overdrive rendering and stuff on Cyberpunk, for example, it'll blow your mind. It really is magical. But that is one game that has been very, very carefully optimized by NVIDIA and CDPR to showcase ray traced features. Most games end up in situations kind of like this, where they just, you know, there's just artifacting and weird remnants. And like here, I think it gets really bad with the chainmail. As you can see here, as I tag forward, like it just looks grainy and off. It's like, and this, to be clear, is not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal. You can still play the game and have a great time. I want to be very, very clear about this. This doesn't necessarily mean like game bad because grainy. Like, that's not what we're saying. But it is fair to point out that this is a consistent problem industry-wide for sure. And my hope has been for a while that they would continue to make improvements to get past the reliance on upscalers to hit performance targets. But it seems like they still are having to rely on upscalers pretty heavily, even at this stage of development. And it was supposed to release this year. Now it's, of course, early next year. And I was just hoping that they would be at the point where we'd be getting some trailers that looked, you know, native or close to native, and like, or even just equivalent of like DLSS quality mode. But I still feel like we're largely seeing stuff running on DLSS performance effectively. And that's just frustrating because it probably means that this is not going to run super well on most people's hardware. If you have a 4090, a 5090, whatever, yeah, you can brute force your way through it and it'll run well enough for you because you just can plow through any lack of optimization. But 99.9% of people do not have a $1,500, $1,600, $1,700 graphics card because they're not crazy like me. So it's unrealistic to be like, well, just spend more on your PC and then you can get good performance. I think that's silly. But like, this is not like so blurry that it's like unacceptable. I think that like Star Wars Survivor, that was pretty bad. Star Wars Jedi Survivor, I think is what the full title was. That one was genuinely so poorly optimized that it was kind of game breaking for the first like handful of weeks. But this is very, very playable. And I played it and thought it was very playable. The one thing that you'll see here though is the camera difficulties. I think one of the comments even said the camera will most likely be the hardest enemy we face, TBH, which is fair. You'll see that in this previous moment, he had the dot on the boss. My understanding is that they have a combat lock on and they also have a camera lock on. They are not the same thing. So in most games, like a Soulsborne game, the lock on for the camera is the lock on for combat. You press the right stick, it locks onto the boss, and then all of your attacks will aim at that point and your camera will lock on to that point. In this game, at least at this point, it seems like they are two separate things. So people will lock on with the combat lock on to lock on their attacks, and you know, if they're using the bow, it'll automatically snap there, things like that. but the camera will still be free roaming and getting stuck on stuff, and it can have problems like that. So if you want to lock on the camera, that's an additional button input to lock on the camera. So that seems to be the problem and the distinction. I had problems with this when I played the game. I mentioned it in my initial impressions video after playing it back in June. And the devs actually, it was funny. I didn't realize we were staying at the same hotel, and we were down like at the bottom where it's like the lobby of the hotel, and next to it is the elevator for the whole tower, because it's the hotel is there, but it's also like partially an apartment building and everything. So there's a separate, almost a lobby just for the elevators. And we were going out of there because we were going to go out and get dinner or something. And we ran into the devs and the people from the PR team for Crimson Desert. And they're like, yeah, so we saw your video. And I was like, oh God, uh-oh, did I say something wrong? What happened? And they said, oh, no. We just wanted you to know that whole thing with like the camera lock on, there actually is a way to do this. It's two separate, and they explained what I just explained. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's cool. And shout out to them for watching the video. And like immediately being like, hey, we have a fix for that. We have a fix for that, which is cool. But I still think Crimson Desert looks great. Again, whenever you have a game where like your primary like frustration is it looks too good to be true, and then also like I just hope they can continue to polish it so it runs this well for everybody. That's a good problem to have, because it means what you're seeing is exciting you, what you're seeing is looking really good. You just want them to deliver what you're seeing. And if they can do that, I think they'll have a pretty big success. Look at this. Dude. That's hardcore. That's hardcore, dude. So I'm really excited to see this. I think it's looking really good. I think like maybe some of the effects is that they're doing some light ray tracing at like quarter resolution on the metal, and that's what's also making it look kind of grainy. I'm not sure. I'm sure you'd get used to it when you start playing it, but it's just noticeable when you're watching the trailers and stuff. But I'm thoroughly excited. Again, another thing that I still just don't know about is the writing quality. Because we've seen little snippets like this where the dialogue seems fairly well voice acted and delivered and everything, but the overarching narrative, what they've written for the story and stuff, we just don't know yet, because we don't know. And that's often a weak point of like massive games, is the writing. So that's one to keep an eye on. But overall, in terms of gameplay, it looks freaking massive and fantastic. Look at this. So watch this. I want you to just appreciate the data streaming that's needed to pull off something like this at this fidelity level. Like, you want to know why Fallout and Bethesda, like why they've never really liked doing vehicles? They'll give you a horse in Skyrim that runs as fast as a person sprinting, but never any faster than that. The reason that they can't is because data streaming in those games is so slow that they just literally can't stream the data for the rest of the world in fast enough to let you do it. It just doesn't work. But with this game, like, they're just seamlessly like, yeah, look at this crazy amount of detail. It's why also like Tears of the Kingdom was so ridiculously impressive, because they just casually are, look at this, it's like a zip line kind of thing. Yeah, they're just like letting you go from map to map, like in the sky, down to the earth, down into the subterranean level. It's really crazy. Then climb up on top of the tower, and then the demo is over. I want a spiral staircase in my house. Is that an unreasonable thing to want? I feel like that's a life goal. Like, look at how massive this is. This is just one camera pan, but you see the massive castle, of course. But even off in the distance back here, there's like the whole town and village, and down in the valley, there's another small, you can barely see it. There's like a village back here as well. There's so much in this game, dude. It's a game a single player game made by guys that primarily have their experience in the like MMORPG realm. They know how to handle scale for sure. Anyway, Crimson Desert, it's still looking really, really good. I just hope that they can continue to polish it up and refine it so that we all get to experience it in that level, whether you're playing on a 3060 or a 4090, 5090, whatever. Fingers crossed. We'll keep an eye on it. They delayed it, so they should have more time to do it.
He took my thing.